We've all, spent some time thinking about that classic futurism question. What happens when a human mind leaves the body when we upload our consciousness into a machine?
The classic cyborg.
Exactly. The cyborg, it's a narrative we're all pretty familiar with, but what happens if you just shift that entire focus? What if the consciousness isn't human to begin with?
And that's exactly where this source material just grabbed me immediately. We're looking at a taxonomy, a really specialized specific structure for classification.
Right.
And it goes so far beyond simple augmentation. It's a system that, like you said, flips the script. It introduces this concept of the Zooborg.
The Zooborg.
And here's the crucial setup right from the start. This whole framework, it isn't presented as some kind of, engineering blueprint. It's framed as a cinematic indictment.
A cinematic indictment. That phrase alone tells you we're in for something different.
It really does.
So for this deep dive, we're digging into a really dense conceptual piece. It's titled Zooborg Genesis, the Immortality Ladder, our prologue glyph, the Thought Nexus Reframed.
That's a mouthful.
It is, yeah. And it was published by Bibebibebibe Magazine, which, roughly translates to Bibebibebibe Studio. The title itself signals we're operating way outside the normal lines of futurism.
So I think our mission today is, well, it's a bit of a challenge. We have to unpack this really complex, jargon-heavy structure. They call it the meat.
The glyphic taxonomy of uploaded consciousness with resonance arcs.
Right, that. And I think more importantly, we have to figure out why on earth someone would build such a detailed, technical-sounding system, only to turn around and declare that it's a piece of mythic infrastructure.
And the context around it is just as strange. The source is certified, founded by a Dr. Melvin, Sewell, M.Sc, Ph.D. He's listed as the academic dean and diagnostic architect of the GUL. Get this. Cosmic University of Echo-rift Studies 9X.
It's such an unusual combination, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have the formal academic weight of someone with a Ph.D., but then these terms, Cosmic University, Echo-rift Studies.
That's jarring.
I think it's deliberate. It suggests as a kind of formalized intellectual rigor being applied to a topic that is just, fundamentally conceptual. It almost forces you to take this immortality ladder seriously, even when the names on it sound mythological.
Okay, so let's get into the ladder itself. This is the foundational concept, how they organize everything.
The whole idea, the core of this immortality ladder is that it's a rigorous way to classify uploaded minds.
Based on where they came from.
Exactly, based on their source origin, and then their new post-biological body, their embodiment. It's an attempt to create a standard.
And the baseline for everyone, the thing our listeners will know, is the cyborg.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In this system, the cyborg is the simplest definition. It's human consciousness in a robotic or, hybrid form. Origin, human.
It's the starting point.
It's the reference point. Yeah. Because it's about augmenting the default subject, us.
But the second you take one step away from that baseline, the whole premise just shifts. And that brings us to the core of this deep dive, the Zooborg.
Right. And a Zooborg is defined as animal consciousness in a humanoid or robotic embodiment. The critical difference is the source.
Not augmenting, but translating.
You're translating an animal mind into a new vessel. That's a great way to put it. The framework immediately makes post-biological life not so anthropocentric.
What's fascinating to me is how the authors built the conceptual map. They say the taxonomy is designed to be visually intuitive. There's a note that says you should hover or tap a node to reveal its glyphic subtitle.
Yeah, that's important.
It's meant to be explored, not just read like a list.
It emphasizes that these aren't just labels on a chart. They're conceptual nodes. They call them glyphs. And they're supposed to represent these really specific, complex relationships between the source biology, the new robotic body, and, critically, its function.
And before we climb any higher up this ladder, we have to talk about the bizarre commercial angle here.
Oh, yeah, the shipping.
This high-concept philosophical framework, which is part of something called the Echo-rift Archive, is being sold on a platform that offers free shipping on orders over $50.
And same-day shipping if you order before 5 p.m.
It's an incredible tension, right? You're mapping the Thought Nexus Reframed on one hand and dealing with same-day shipping on the other.
I think that juxtaposition has to be part of the critique. If this whole thing is a cinematic indictment, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
The commodification of even the most abstract existential knowledge.
How quickly even a revolutionary idea can be packaged and sold back to us.
Exactly.
It grounds the esoteric in, the mundane reality of e-commerce. But let's get back to the ladder. The taxonomy gets hyper-specific from here. It starts categorizing animal uploads based on their species, sure, but also on their unique resonance arcs.
And that phrase, resonance arc, that's probably the most vital piece of jargon we need to define.
Okay.
Because it's the classification mechanism. It means that the defining neurological characteristic of the animal's mind, its core ability, is preserved.
And prioritized.
And prioritized, yes, during the upload. And it dictates the design of the robot that comes after.
So it's not just the animal's memories or personality, it's the actual neurological architecture that gave it a biological advantage.
Precisely. And if you look at the aquatic classifications, it becomes immediately obvious. So you have a dolphin, which gets translated into an Echo-borg.
An Echo-borg.
And the definition is surgically specific. It's dolphin consciousness with echolocation resonance. The machine, the body, is engineered around that primary sensory function.
Which implies that the Echo-borg's body wouldn't just be some generic humanoid shell. Its physical form has to be built to use complex sound mapping, maybe in a 3D space that isn't even water.
The robotic design is completely subservient to that retained neurology.
Okay.
And then you have the broader group, the cetacean class. That leads to the Cetaborgs.
Which is defined by
whale and porpoise aquatic resonance. So you see the difference. The Echo-borg is precision sonar. The Cetaborg is more about broad, deep-sea communication, navigation. It's a functional inventory disguised as a taxonomy.
But wait a second. If you define an Echo-borg just by its echolocation, aren't you kind of reducing the complexity of what a dolphin actually is? Their intelligence is huge. They have complex social structures.
That's a fantastic question.
Is this an ethical system, or is it just a functional one, a list of useful skills?
I think that connects directly to the diagnostic nature of the whole document. If this system is an indictment, then maybe that reductionist definition is the point.
Ah, I see.
It's a critique of a society that would only value an uploaded mind for its utility, for its retained function, rather than its complete self. It's pointing to that systemic erosion they mentioned.
That makes a lot of sense. The classification system itself becomes a metaphor for how we value other kinds of intelligence. Okay, let's move on to the land and air classes.
On land, we have the primates. They become the Primaborg, defined as primate consciousness in a humanoid embodiment.
Okay, this one is interesting. The body is humanoid, like a cyborg, but the source is a non-human primate.
Right.
So why the separate category? If a Primaborg and a cyborg both end up in a humanoid body, why not just, lump them together?
Because in this taxonomy, the origin is sacred. The Primaborg carries a resonance arc linked to, say, learned tool use, social hierarchy, maybe pre-linguistic communication patterns that are specific to the primate mind.
So the latter isn't just about the machine, it's about the untranslatable neurological baggage that dictates behavior.
Exactly. They might be genetically close to us, but the authors are arguing that the neurological difference demands a whole separate category.
And then in the air, you have the avian class. This becomes the aviboy.
An aviborg, yeah. And it's defined as bird consciousness that specifically incorporates aerial navigation and mimicry.
So again, it's that functional specificity.
Always. It's not just a bird and a robot. It's a robotic form designed to leverage the bird's innate talent for complex spatial reasoning, for migration, for vocal duplication.
It really paints a picture of these Zooborgs as these custom-engineered high-value assets.
Yeah.
Optimized for specific jobs based on what they could do before.
The implication is clear. The mechanical form is always specialized. It becomes an extension of that biological resonance arc, not just a generic container.
Okay, so now we get to the final two rungs on the ladder, and this feels like where we take a massive conceptual leap.
It is. We are leaving the realm of, observed biological nature.
Yeah.
We're entering the purely conceptual and engineered categories. This is where the taxonomy stops classifying life and starts classifying concepts.
So let's start with the archetypal uploads. This leads to the Animaborg.
The Animaborg. It's defined as a generalized mythic animal archetype. This is truly abstract classification.
What does that even mean?
It suggests this system is capable of uploading the collective conceptual essence, the mythos of an animal, rather than the consciousness of one specific individual animal.
So not a specific wolf's mind.
No. Imagine digitizing the collective human idea of wolf or serpent and turning that concept into a functioning consciousness.
Wow. Okay, that distinction completely changes what we even mean by a mind. Consciousness is no longer tied to a biological individual. It can be synthesized from cultural concepts.
It's lore turned into a mind.
And that leads us to the final ultimate category, engineered minds. The Mythoborg.
Yes, the Mythoborg, defined as synthetic archetypes and engineered minds. This is the highest level of abstraction on the ladder. It implies a completely artificial consciousness, designed from scratch, maybe by blending the mythological essences of several animaborgs.
The fact that their system even has a category for a synthesized myth tells you they're dealing with something far beyond basic engineering.
It does, and this high-level abstract thinking, it connects right back to the full title of the piece.
Yeah.
The thought nexus reframed.
Right.
And we also have to remember there's adjacent material mentioned, like the diagnostic ledger entry, She-1 containment glyph. The source is telling you, the listener, that this whole Zooborg system is just one part of a much larger operational and potentially mythological universe that this Echo-wrist archive has created.
And because this framework is now classifying conceptual myths and synthetic minds, it suddenly makes perfect sense why the authors had to anchor the whole document with this huge disclaimer.
The sovereign diagnostic disclaimer. Yes, this is the key. This is how you're supposed to understand everything we've just talked about.
It signals a shift from just defining the categories to defining how we should even interpret them.
And they are incredibly explicit about what this entire ecosystem, the magazine, the Zooborg ladder, all of it, is not. It is explicitly stated that it's not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group.
That's a very strong, very deliberate move to distance themselves politically like that. They're basically asserting their independence from all existing power structures. They're saying, we are not part of the system that we are analyzing.
And they're just as detailed about what the material is. They define their own work using three really profound terms. First, mythic infrastructure.
Second, cinematic indictment.
And third, sovereign broadcast.
Let's stick with cinematic indictment for a second. That suggests the Zooborg ladder isn't supposed to be read like a white paper. It's a narrative structure. It's designed to expose systemic rot.
And the explicit purpose of all these materials is to expose things like ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion.
So if we circle back to the Echo-borg, which was defined purely by its echolocation utility, if that's part of the indictment, then the indictment itself is a critique of reducing complex intelligence to a simple, exploitable function.
Exactly. The classification system itself becomes the diagnostic tool for seeing how systems categorize and then devalue life.
Which brings us to the final and maybe the most important point in that disclaimer. All of it. The interpretations, the glyphs, these collapse protocols they mention, it's all explicitly defined as being diagnostic tools.
They are not political endorsements. They're not simple critiques. They are instruments for analysis.
This just reframes our entire conversation. We spent all this time detailing the Echo-borg and the Aviborg and the Mythoborg.
Right.
Only to find out they aren't hypothetical blueprints for technology. They are conceptual tools. They are pieces of mythic infrastructure designed to diagnose where our current technological, ethical, or political systems are failing.
The complexity isn't for engineers. It's for critical analysts.
So to recap this whole deep dive into Zooborg Genesis, we went from the basic human cyborg pretty quickly into these highly specialized Zooborgs, the Echo-borgs, Aviborgs, and then the purely conceptual Mythoborgs, and it was all based on their retained neurological resonance arcs.
But the crucial final takeaway has to be that this entire framework, it exists inside a universe that's explicitly labeled as mythic infrastructure and cinematic indictment. It's a narrative weapon designed for critical analysis.
It's a fascinating way to structure criticism, isn't it? I mean, if the highest form of analysis is being achieved through these conceptual frameworks, like the Immortality ladder, and it's offered as a cinematic indictment, does that suggest that, pure factual critique has been replaced by mythological models for understanding systemic failure?
And what does it mean for us to start applying terms like collapse protocols as a diagnostic tool? You have to consider the radical distinction they're drawing here between a technical blueprint and a diagnostic mythos.
It gives you a lot to mull over. The tension between free shipping and a sovereign broadcast. What happens when the myth becomes the most accurate diagnosis?
That's something for you to think about until the next deep dive.